welcome to episode 55 of the J Bunny's Music Hub podcast. I'm your host, J Bunny. Well, everybody, for this episode of the show, I think this is the most people I have ever had in an interview at one time. And I've had other interviews with like band members sitting in and not really saying anything, but for this one, I have Kevin, Snell, and Ian Omega from Chmcl Str8jckt, Mistress Misha and Traece, aka Craig Niebuhr from Handsome Abominations, and John Bechdel, producer for these bands, and Sandy Datcher, who is someone who helped Chmcl Str8jckt develop the relationship that they have with John Bechdel. So, and everybody had input on this interview. It was fantastic. It was such a great time. It was very informative in certain ways. We got a whole section of John Bechdel describing and defining what industrial music is supposed to be. It was great. I think you guys are going to enjoy it. And without further ado, here's everybody.
All right, what's up, everybody? It is J Bunny, and for the first time since 2019, I am not on Skype. I am still drinking beer from Ghost Hawk Brewery because it's fucking fantastic, and you should check it out. But I am at Chmcl Str8jckt Headquarters with Kevin Snell and Ian Omega of Chmcl Str8jckt, their producer, John Bechdel, and also Craig Niebuhr, a.k.a. Traece, who has contributed some material to the new Chmcl Str8jckt album. How's it going, everybody?
It's great.
Good. What's up?
All good.
All right, so Kevin, I want to say first that I cannot believe that it's taken us this long to get here, because I had initially reached out to you, first communicated with you about being on the podcast about 2 years ago through Facebook, because you had made a Facebook post about how you had an interview scheduled with someone else, and they decided they didn't want to do it because you guys were your Facebook post said apparently we're too controversial and people don't want to interview us. And I reached out, I said, I'll do it. So what was that about, first and foremost?
Yeah, it's funny. I actually forgot about that. We're
controversial?
You know what it was? It was that we weren't extremely PC, and I'd made some comments on Facebook. Nothing terribly off of center, but actually very center.
Right.
And that was, the misogynist term got thrown around, and then the person canceled the interview because of our lyrics and my refusal to capitulate to the modern thinking of just, you know what, we're dudes.
Yeah.
I write dude shit, and I wasn't going to change anything. So that interview got canceled. That's what that was. I totally forgot about that, actually, until just now. But,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. And so I had actually first become aware of the band in 2018 when I saw you guys open for Orgy at the Stanhope House. Cool. As far as I know from your Facebook post, Chmcl Str8jckt was not your first band. Can you tell me about your journey in music prior to Chmcl Str8jckt?
It's very brief. When I was in high school, I played keyboards for a couple years, had lessons, played bass guitar for a couple years, had lessons on that. Got my first synth. It was an Ensoniq SQ1 when I was a freshman in college, and that's when, for me, what I called the second wave of industrial was breaking. Skinny Puppy, Nitzareb, all that type of stuff. And I had previously loved synth music, which is why I got into playing synth. I was into Depeche Mode and New Order and that type of stuff, but then when I heard what Puppy was doing and they were making synth music evil, it really excited me. And I was like, oh my God, because I was never really a metal guy, but I liked darkness. And now I knew that, playing my chosen instrument of keyboards, I could make dark music. Because Skinny Puppy's doing it, and it's fucking brilliant. And then I transitioned from synth pop because I was a huge fan of With Sympathy by Ministry. And then when Twitch came out and Rape and Honey, and it just I saw all these people taking synth music and making it just fucking evil. It was so exciting. So yeah, I bought an Ensoniq SQ1 when I was in Rutgers. I was a freshman. I called home, which was Mike Caroli and Chris Padula, which were two of my friends from high school. They were younger than me, so they were still back home. And I was at Rutgers, and I called them and I said, I just spent $1,200 that I don't have. I put it on a credit card, but I can sequence, I can sample, I'm making drum beats. Because Chris was a vocalist and he wrote poetry, and Mike was a guitarist, and they were the only people I knew that played music besides me.
All right.
So I called them. I said, "Can we form a band?" And they're like, "Yes." So I would come home on weekends, and that's how Point One Molar, which is the worst name in music history, took place. We played for about 2 years. We made a cassette. We recorded 6 songs that we put onto a CD, even though it was a homemade CD. But we played a lot of shows. We played Manhattan and a lot down by Rutgers, of course, because that was my home. So now the next year, go off to college. One goes to UConn, the other one goes to Rhode Island, and that was the end of the band. From that point forward, I never played music again.
Oh, wow.
They continued to play music. Mike was in indie rock bands. Chris moved to Manhattan to be in a band, and they did a lot of shoegaze type stuff. They got away from the industrial stuff. I continued to listen to industrial music, but I stopped playing. I mean, I had a keyboard. Like when we met 10 years ago, I would mess around on my computer, but never anything serious until I reconnected with Mike, which would have been in 2017. Mike's band was playing a show, and I hadn't seen him in probably 20, 25 years. And we went to the show down at Dingbats.
Okay.
And,
Love that place.
Yeah, it's a great place. And, they did a really good job, and afterwards we had some beers, and it was like no time had passed. It was like, oh my God, I miss you, and blah, blah, blah. And he was like, I guess I could say this. They won't hear it. He was like, I'm sick of working with these idiots in my band. He was like, I'm burnt out. He was like, let's do it again. And I was like, do what again? He was like, industrial. And I was like, dude, I haven't touched a fucking keyboard in like 25 years. And it was an hour drive back to Branchville, and the whole time I was just thinking, like, I want to do this. I've got a lot to learn. I got to, get up to date, because Sonic SQ1 isn't going to cut it now. I have to learn computer stuff, and so I bought Reason's Propeller Head, which is a great program. It's what I use for all of our music, and I just started writing some tracks, and that was it. I sent them to Mike, and he was like, "Holy shit, yeah, like let's do this." So.
Okay, and then Ian, what about you? I'm familiar with your name from having worked with Chris Zacher in the past. So what about your journey in music leading up to this band?
Well, I kind of grew up playing drums, local cover bands and original bands and punk rock bands, alternative bands, pretty much tried a little bit of everything over the years. He played a little bit in a country band for a while. I just like being versatile, and I was always trying to do something else. I've been in a bunch of different groups. The one that you speak of is the Omega Men. I kind of stole the name, which kind of worked. I was still in that band, actually, when I joined Chmcl Str8jckt. I was playing in both bands for a while until the passing of our bass player in the Omega Men. Yeah, and then, I just discovered Kevin and the guys from a Facebook post, little explosive Facebook post.
Which is so rare for you.
Yeah, it happens.
Fighting on Facebook, Ian? No.
I've toned it down a bit.
So I feel like there's a story to that. Can we get into that a little bit? The Facebook post?
Basically, there's a local music page on Facebook, local group. Rock and roll, Sussex County, something like that. And I was looking for something to do on a Friday night, and there was really no bands that I wanted to see playing anywhere. Everywhere I looked, it was either acoustic performers or jam bands, that just keep going on and on and on and on and on for 30 minutes on one song. And there was no rock and roll anymore. There was no, like heavy metal. There was no punk bands. There was no nothing with a pulse. So I put up this post on this site, like, where is all of this? It's a Friday night, I'm bored as hell, where are all the rock bands anymore? And a few people chimed in, and I don't know, maybe my responses to a few might not have been the most tactful, shall we say.
And in the meantime, I'm watching this thread. I don't say a word. I'm just watching, and I'm going, this guy's a fucking lunatic. Because he's kind of part of the scene, and he's burning it down. It's scorched earth. You all suck. If I hear another Van Halen cover, I'm going to fucking slit my throat. And then, not to hijack this, but then this one guy posts, well, here's my band. We're different, and we're from Sussex County. And I wait, and I wait, and I wait, because I know he's listening to the song. And about 3.5 minutes later, he posts, "You're exactly what I'm talking about."
It was like jam band, and it was exactly what I was talking about.
You were like, you are exactly the problem.
The exact generic, watered down, I don't know, like hipster's version of rock that, it makes me sick. It's just like, it's
so I'm sitting on a computer.
Just so boring.
It's like watching, a train wreck. I'm sitting there and I'm like, I can't wait to see what he says next. We don't even know each other. I'm just watching. And then I'm saying to myself, I like this guy. Like, this is fucking cool, because I feel the same way. You can go to any bar, and this is no diss to anybody in our community, because
no, they're all talented.
They're
It's not a matter
really
of talent.
talented. Yeah, they're amazing. But you can hear Wagon Wheel at any given time in any bar in Sussex County on any night.
Yeah.
And it is the same stuff, and there's just not much original stuff. So I'm watching this guy, and he's just ripping these people apart. And I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. So I said, well, what about this? And I posted the video for Dress to Kill. And instantly, 3.5 minutes later, so I'm sitting there, I'm waiting. He's going to be like, yeah, you fucking suck too. But he's like, holy shit, who is this? And I'm like, I'm Kevin. He's like, this is in Branchville? I'm like, yeah. He's like, holy shit, this is exactly what I'm looking for. I love KMFDM.
I was like, how do I not know
blah, blah, blah.
you in Branchville?
Yeah.
You live 10 minutes from me, and how do I not know you?
So that was it. We struck up a conversation, and he came over. I had to talk to Mike, of course, but I always wanted a percussionist in the band. I wanted to make it a bigger band, not just a two-piece, which it was at the time. Uh-huh. And the big test was I said, come over at 7 o'clock, and we'll just hang out and talk music, And he showed up at 6:59, and that, for me, meant a lot. Because you know how I am.
Right.
I was like, he's not late.
I know you're
That's
big on
awesome.
punctuality.
Yes. And it turned out that we've been to like a million shows at the same time, at the same places, and we just didn't know it. And we had a lot of similar likes, and it just worked out great. Took a little tweaking, of course. He brought over his drums. He set up the bass drum, and
regular drum set.
Started
out with a regular drum set.
And we ran through a couple songs, and I was like, wow, this sounds like rock and roll.
Yeah, neither one of us
we
thought
lost
it
the
worked.
industrial edge, so we created this hybrid kit, and I said, can you play standing up? He's like, I've never done it. I said, okay. Try it. And so we kind of developed this stage presence, and it's worked great.
All right, awesome. And then what does the band's name mean? I know that when we hung out last, one of the guys from the band Centrifuge had interpreted the band name to be a metaphor for drug addiction.
Well, a Chmcl Str8jckt is, I'm a pharmacist, and it's one of the things that we learned in pharmacy school. It is an actual term for incapacitating someone who is in a state of frenzy. Okay, so it's very common in mental institutions, hospitals that take care of the mentally ill. When someone is in a manic phase, you administer a Chmcl Str8jckt.
Okay.
And what that is, it's a combination of Haldol and diazepam, and basically you're turning their brain off.
Okay.
And I remember back in Rutgers, when we were studying Chmcl Str8jckt, I had said to Scott Luckman, who is also in the band, if I'm ever in another band, I'm going to name it Chmcl Str8jckt. And 35 years went by, and then I got my opportunity. But the name was already taken. We did an internet search, and there was like some dude down in Georgia playing, very simple metal, and he had the name already taken. So I didn't want to give it up.
Right.
So we just changed it. We dropped the vowels and threw the 8 in there, and made it look more industrial and harsh. And I was like, yeah, that's it. All right, we're Chmcl Str8jckt. Little did we know Alexa would never recognize our name anymore.
And he still picks up a few of our fans because of it.
Oh, I'm sure he does. But you say, Alexa, play... it doesn't work.
Right. And you've kind of already explained it, but I've always wanted to ask you if you had some sort of innate hatred for vowels, because there's no vowels in your band name, there's no vowels in any of your album titles.
Fuck vowels.
Vowels are soft. They're for pussies.
That's fair enough.
Consonants are tough.
Vowels are for pussies.
That's right.
Okay, and then so after releasing your first album and remix album, you signed with Cleopatra Records. How did that come about?
I got a hateful email from a local DJ who was trying to tell me how I should be doing things, and he warned me, you're not fit for any labels. So, of course, the next thing I did was shop for a label with a vengeance. No, that's That's a very brief version. The long version is through who became our friend through Instagram, Sandy. She introduced us to John Bechdel from Ministry. And he agreed to work with us. And when we came up with the song Bomb Cyclone and we made a video for it, I felt that was strong enough, and I thought we were ready. And I started sending that video to the only two labels that I cared about, which were Metropolis and Cleopatra. And silence, of course. Nobody responded. And finally, I would send it by email. I would send it by instant messenger. I would post it on Facebook because I didn't want to release the album because I felt it was good enough to be signed. So I kept holding back from releasing the album. And then finally, one day, I'm at work and I get an instant message from the vice president of Cleopatra saying, "Wow, this is really fucking good." And that was the second time I fell down at work. The first time was when you called me. So that was it. He liked it, and he said, we want to sign you, and the rest is history.
And then your most recent album, Dark Progression, was released on February 12th. How does this compare to your previous releases? Is there anything there that might surprise fans of the band?
I don't know that there are surprises other than what I hear from every review is that it's next level. It's bigger, it's more powerful, the hooks are more hooky. Well, let's ask our producer. What do you think? What's the difference?
Well, I agree, but at the same time, I don't want to take anything away from Wretched Things because although, like you said, it might have been more work, the end result was very strong and representative of the sound of the band, and also do a lot of respect and credit for everyone all around. And I think it's a natural progression from the two records. But yes, no doubt the songwriting and structuring was more developed, more refined, and some of the behind the scenes stuff, like just the way you organized and gave me the tracks, made my job easier, and we learned a lot. Like you hopefully do, from one thing to the next. And some of the things that I did on Wretched Things, Kevin took care of, ahead of time, and gave me much more comprehensive, organized stems. The production work was similar, but it wasn't as much work and didn't take as long. I think we worked more quickly, and we had gotten a better feel for each other and how we worked together. And I would send you a track often, and you were like, bingo,
Yeah, there were a lot that
first
edit. I was like, yep, that's it.
And the other ones were really minor things, whereas often, everybody's got to have a say, like I want the bass louder, or I want this, or I want that, or this.
Well, in this band, it's I want the guitar louder.
Well, most bands it is, yeah. And,
love you, Mike.
And that's a very common thing. And as a producer, you kind of learn that once you do that, then everything else disappears. So it becomes a trade-off. So yeah, once you bring, let's say the vocals up, then the music isn't as loud, and once you bring the bass up, then the drums get lost. So that's something that a producer has to grapple with, and with multiple people in a band, sometimes it can become a real power struggle.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we didn't have those difficulties at all, and they really trusted me and gave me a lot of room to work in, which I appreciated, and in return, worked really hard to make sure that that I, if I did do something, that it was good, and that it was not just like some producers. I think they have this idea that they want to put their name all over it, they want to put their their style all over it, and so they might totally manipulate or change a whole band's sound just out of like maybe ego, or I want to make it sound like everything else that I produced or something like that. I don't work that way. For me, I want to first have to hear what they're doing, and I try to understand what they're trying to do, and then I ask myself what can I offer, what can I bring to the table, and how can I improve it, how can I make it better, and one of the major job of a producer is to make something hopefully more accessible to more people. Not in a sellout kind of way, but you also have to understand that music will be listened to on various systems, car stereos,
Phones,
like a boombox or a phone or earbuds or whatever, and so you really have to learn a lot about that. Because I used to mix all bass heavy, like rock and roll, you know, and then you put it on something and it's like, oh, because
blows your
everybody
head
already
off.
has
Yeah.
the bass cranked up, you know. So, and then like let's say little speakers, you know, might start distorting because they just can't handle. So yeah, I think
Juggling act.
Yeah, and I think Dark Progression so far has sounded really good on no matter what you play it on. Which is something people don't really think about when I think about what a producer does. Some people might not even really know what a producer does. And we talked earlier about how sometimes there are two different styles of production. Some producers are visionaries. They might not even know the first thing about a mixing desk or how to play an instrument. Other producers are often musicians who are in bands
Right.
that understand everything about how a record is made, and because there's engineers who do a lot of the technical work. So a producer might often just sit there and say, do this or do that, or make it sound spongy, or make it, just like, and Rick Rubin, for instance, I don't know that much about him, but I do know this, that, as he became more famous, he became really less involved in the work, because
I've heard that.
he just had people do it, and he would pop his head in once in a while and go, "Yep, sounds good," and to me that was kind of like, like maybe not fair. I know Slipknot did it right. They're upset. They're like, we paid him all this money. The guy showed up twice.
Right.
Yeah, that's not you. You're very involved. I mean, you delve into the songs.
Yeah, and I grew considerably as a producer working on these albums. Not afraid to admit, I think that's great, I look back now at some of the stuff that I'm working on, and utilizing a lot of the skills and techniques that I learned and developed working with these guys, which I think is great. It's a real art and a science, mixing and producing. They're two different things, really, but often they get lumped together, where the producer is also the mixer, but not always. We mentioned earlier Trevor Horn, one of my favorite producers, and I always thought his stuff always sounded so great, and you just knew his production and just assumed he was a master of his craft. And I saw an interview with him recently where he was like, oh, I just worked with the best engineers and always worked with the same engineers, and therefore, but yeah, he's like, I don't know how to mix. It's like,
The only other two quick things I'll add about Dark Progression is the two differences for me as the primary songwriter were that, number one, I said fuck genres. I didn't care about, this song sounds metal, this song sounds industrial, I didn't care about any of that, and I knew that we had a good foothold in the industrial scene, and I knew that some of the DJs that loved us would probably not love this album, because it's much more rock, it's much more metal, it's got some punk in there, and it's less industrial, which is not really true, because it's, we sampled...
Very industrial.
It's very industrial.
Very
We
industrial.
sampled a guy using a car jack, and we sampled...
Right here.
Yeah, right here. An air compressor, and it's a very industrial
Ratchets.
album. It just doesn't fit the current modern trend of industrial, which is mostly agrotech and that.
yeah, it's gotten ridiculous now. What we have been discussing this weekend, sadly, is that industrial fans can be real snobs. Well, let's go back. Let's say Al Jorgensen produced Rabies by a Skinny Puppy, right?
Right.
And they added guitars like that kind
Lot
of
of
metal,
guitar on that album, which
kind of.
was
And
different
if
for
you're going to
Puppy.
have Al Jorgensen
Right,
produce
right.
your record,
That's
you
his
better
edge.
be
That's
prepared,
the edge.
Right.
But he said that was one of the most difficult records he produced, because Ogre wasn't really much he really had very little to do with the music and the production of any of that kind of stuff, which he often resented. But Dwayne and Kevin would stand behind the desk, arms folded, while Al mixed, and he was just like, these guys just like staring at him like,
Right. You're adding guitar to our industrial
And he was
music.
like, oh. and the fans, a lot of them, not myself, I loved it,
did
but
too.
a lot of the Skinny Puppy fans were like, this isn't Skinny Puppy, there's guitars, and that
right.
carried through, to 90s industrial, where it just seemed like if you use guitars, they're like, oh, you're not really industrial.
Yeah, there's definitely that snobbery
Guitars,
there.
yeah,
Absolutely.
So I don't know how.
There's a lot of, I call them the purists.
Yeah.
And there's that snobbery. And I just said, fuck it on this album.
Well, how is it that Nine Inch Nails can use guitars?
I don't know. I don't know.
I see a lot of
Could
people.
it be that they're not
I
industrial?
see a lot of people in that circle refuse to admit that Nine Inch Nails is an industrial band.
Oh, there you have
Oh,
it.
no, they're not an industrial
All
band.
right,
It's like,
well,
how are they not an industrial band?
There you have it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, one could argue, and then we can get into the whole discussion of what is industrial, because even Al hates getting into that conversation. He doesn't really like that word. And in the 90s, like when industrial music peaked, it was like everybody wanted to be industrial. So like even an emo band in an interview would be like, oh yeah, we're kind of industrial. You know?
Well, I mean, I think we're industrial because the demos, the basic bone structure of our songs are done on synths, and we sample, and I mean there is a very digital and not artificial, but mechanical sound behind all of our
I
songs.
think that's a key word, and I'm listening to some of this new industrial dance music, and I'm like, where's the industrial? I mean, this is just like techno or disco. You know?
Or goth, really.
Yeah, you might be dressed up like some Hot Topic kind of person, you know, like with all the latest, you know, with the dreadlocks and the goggles and blah, 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 but this isn't industrial. There's nothing industrial about what I'm listening to, but hey, who am I to judge? But if you really want to talk about it, what I could say from my knowledge is industrial music really dates back to the 30s. There was an Italian movement called, I don't know the Italian, I don't speak Italian, but it translated as the art of noise. Which is where the Art of Noise got their name. You know, that they didn't use the term industrial, but they did recognize the musical elements in some of the modern sounds that they were hearing in a mechanized society. So yeah, we could really, you know, date it back much further. Most people say Throbbing Gristle coined the phrase industrial music, which is fair to say, and they'll tell you that that's because they lived in a rough part of town, the only place they could really afford to live, and it was right by the train station and a factory, and so...
So they would hear all these noises.
Yeah, so they were literally surrounded by a cacophony of mechanical sounds, and they decided to embrace it and try to incorporate it into their music. Then, like I said, Cabaret Voltaire, you know, was pretty experimental in their early days. They got a little bit more kind of electronic and danceable in the 80s. And then a band called SPK, an Australian, and a guy named Graham Revell, who went on to be, you know, a big LA soundtrack producer at one point, and Einstürzende Neubauten. You know, I mean, when I first saw their record cover with these like jackhammers and everything,
like
all
shopping
laid
carts.
out.
First time I saw that,
Yeah.
They actually had a shopping
I was like,
cart.
how people can
the
do
guys-
this?
Now that's industrial.
That's music? Wow, that's crazy.
Break drums and shit.
So then,
Broke every rule. Every rule.
seemed like a lot of those bands were getting, like I said, more electronic. Even SPK and Throbbing Gristle, you know, too, you know, did some more electronic kind of stuff, and it seemed like that industrial thing had died out. Although, you know, bands like Front 242 and Skinny Puppy did emerge out of that, you know, like 82, 83 era. I didn't hear about it. I remember seeing the 242 record cover, but not really knowing much about it. And it wasn't until like maybe more mid-80s that I started seeing people wearing Skinny Puppy t-shirts. I'm like, what's all this about? And started going into clubs, and I was hearing Ministry, Nitzareb, and 242, and discovering all these bands, and I was like, oh, this is awesome. At one point, I thought maybe Nitzareb was like Cabaret Voltaire at one point, but I realized that they were what I call second generation industrial, because they were clearly influenced by these same bands that I'm talking about, and then Nine Inch Nails, you know, came along too, and you could hear all those elements, and it was almost like a renaissance of industrial music. And then, you know, Ministry, Nine Inch Nails, you know, peaking the charts, and industrial music was mainstream, and then everybody wanted to be industrial. And like I said, that term got thrown around quite loosely, and then as it waned, you know, well, grunge came along, and then this new metal, and by the early 2000s, people could care less about like industrial music, I think, right?
Absolutely.
And we were talking about the good old days and and when I started up False Icons, I was thinking like, yeah, probably not the best time to try to start up an industrial band, but what the heck?
Well, the ironic thing is with this album,
Going full circle now. Though.
Yeah, things do.
it cycles definitely.
yes.
But yeah, the two things with this album is that we said fuck genres, and we're just gonna whatever comes out of it, and whatever people want to classify it as, and that's one of the things. I actually had somebody ask me, well, how do we classify you? I said, how do you classify Killing Joke? And they were like, I don't know. I said, okay, I don't know either. You know, like,
Nice.
I don't care about the
How do
label
you
that gets put on
classify
us. And the other thing that we did that was very different for this album is I really, again, as the primary songwriter, I focused on hooks. I realized that the things that I love about songs are the sing-along parts. The parts that, you know, I love Tom Petty. I mean, I love rock and roll, and I was really immersed in Tom Petty, and I watched a 5-hour documentary about his life. Wow. And when him and Mike Campbell would sit down to write a song, they would always say to each other, remember our mantra, don't bore us, get to the chorus.
Nice.
And they would repeat that to each other before they wrote a song because they knew it was about the hook. It was about something that somebody can listen to and want to chant along or scream along or whatever. So I really, as a songwriter, I did make a conscious effort on this album, much more to focus on the hooks. And I knew that, you know, some people think that is trying to get commercial. But no, I want to see people sing my songs.
Well, let's face it. I mean, there's so much music now, and we went from having, say, rock and metal and country, you know, to having genres, industrial and alternative and new wave, and then we had subgenres, and then now we have niches and micro niches, and the problem with that is that it limits you, you know. And I start hearing this music and it all sounds the same, you know. Agrotech, it's like, oh, well, then, you know, once you're going down that path, then you have to follow this formula, and you can't really, like I said, use guitars, or you can't, you know, sing too loud, or you can't be happy, or you can't be melodic, and they all sound the same. And to me, you know, my statement to that is, you know, there's a million bands that sound like that. You know, do we really need 1,000,001?
Right. And if you're going to write an album, one of the things I always loved about albums was, like, you pull any old Cure album out, right? And it could go from the most morose,
Angry,
suicide-inducing song to Friday I'm in Love.
Yeah, happy, uplift.
And then back down again. And, you know, it takes you on this emotional roller coaster, and the sounds, although you can tell every song's The Cure, it changes a lot, and it shows you, because what is your life, right? Your life is a series of emotions. It's not one.
Yeah.
And I don't ever want to make an album where every song sounds like the same, has the same emotion. So when Mike gives me a riff like Syrinx, you know, dun, 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 and I'm like, man, that's like death metal. Cool, we're gonna do that.
Well, think about
Yeah.
a novel.
Right.
You know, every chapter is not the same, like Groundhog Day or something.
Yeah.
There's perhaps battle scenes or wars, or, you know, there might be parties
stories.
and festivals and journeys.
Orgies.
Yeah.
Nice.
You know, so,
If I'm the author.
So I often think about it that way too.
Or
I think
main
of each song maybe telling a story or being a chapter in a book, and then you put it all together, you know. But one thing I just can't stand is when you listen to a band and every song sounds the same.
Right.
It's almost like,
Cookie
you know,
cutter.
yeah. And the problem is that if you want to be successful,
You need
You're-
versatility.
and you want, well, I mean,
No,
actually, if you want to be successful and if you want to, like, you know, fit in and
stray
make money,
too far
that's
from
really
that.
Right, then you've
that's
gotta fit
really-
the formula and
I
not
know,
sound
that's
different.
kind of, and I think these bands sit around and listen to the radio and you're like, oh, this is what's popular, so we have to sound just like that.
You were
know?
talking about that on the drive here.
Yeah.
And then there's a million bands all sounding just like that. And I remember at one point, maybe in the mid 2000s, you know, listening to the radio, I was like, I couldn't differentiate the bands. Every band sounded the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is that a good thing or a bad thing? I mean, hey, you know, like
Not
sometimes
really.
being too original or too unique, you know, it's almost like shooting yourself in the foot. It's like, well, you don't fit in anywhere, you know.
You
I'd rather
can either
have
go
that.
with the mainstream or set it, and
Yeah,
there's a
yeah.
fine line between.
Yeah.
But, you know, just before, I know you're You
Yeah.
want to get into the next
No,
question?
no,
But
no.
before we get on to that, the further thing that I'll say about that is that's why we kind of coined our own phrase "outlaw industrial rock" because we felt like we didn't fit anywhere else. We had to like create a genre to capture what we are.
You know what? I think that
if you consider yourself any kind of artist, how can you have any desire to be categorized as a genre?
well, that's what I was going to say. Is that I think that some of my favorite bands have taken it upon themselves to decide what they are.
Yeah.
For example, band that I'm really, really into that I found through the Renaissance Fair is this acoustic pirate metal band called the Dread Crew of Oddwood, and they have coined themselves their genre because they are heavy metal, but they are acoustic, so they are not heavy metal; they are heavy mahogany.
Yep.
Okay, all right.
And then you know there's a rock band that I'm pretty into that has decided that their genre is rogue rock. You know.
Okay, and we're outlaw industrial.
Yeah, and so like you know, it seems like yeah,
kind of flip it around. You know, okay, you want a genre, we'll make a genre.
right,
you know?
right.
Actually, if you search Bandcamp for outlaw industrial rock, it's an actual genre on there now that Cleopatra created for Chmcl Str8jckt. We are the only album on the chart. We are number one.
Well, look out because you know now there's going to be 1,000 followers.
See, I wonder now with again going back to Dread Crew if there's any other heavy mahogany bands. So you know, JB mentioned how every you know song in an album is like a chapter in a book, and I'm not generally one to ask what does that song mean, but I do know that on the new Chmcl Str8jckt album you have the song "The Death of Lucille," and I know that there's a story behind that song, and I would love for you to tell it.
That is an excellent question. All right, this could get me in trouble at work, but the truth is that at my pharmacy we have a cast of characters who are very difficult customers, and Lucille was the most difficult I ever dealt with in my life. She was a miserable, odious, terrible, foul-tempered old woman, and she would call 6 times a day. And whoever she got, you're a fucking idiot, you're a moron, blah, 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 and you're just... I got to the point where after like a year of this, I called my corporate office and I said, I need to ban this person from our pharmacy. Like, I can't have her destroying the morale of my team every day, spewing this vitriol, this hatred. And, you know, I tried to be understanding. There were times that I actually brought her flowers. I would send my driver with a bouquet. You know, hey, Lucille, hope your day is okay. For a while, she couldn't leave her house, and I went to her house and I gave her the flu shot. I mean, I went above and beyond, but nothing worked. Wasn't good enough.
She was a complete misanthrope.
Total. One of these people that, and like the song says, devoid of joy, consumer. You know, she eats the sun.
Yeah.
she swallowed hope.
Yeah.
And so, corporate, to their credit, backed me and sent her a letter saying that you can't go to any of our stores.
Oh wow!
7 stores that we own, she wasn't allowed to go to any of them. And a month later, she died. So I like to think that my dismissal of her played a role in her death. I'm fairly sure it did. I think that what she had left of a heart, I think I put the final crack into it, and I'm pretty sure that's why she died. But that day we had cake. and we wore hats and blue horns. And the next day, so I connected with Trace, and he came over. It was a Sunday, I believe, and he had this track already written. And you know, he didn't know what I would do with it. He didn't know if it would be Str8jckt or if we were going to do something else. But I already the day before I had sat in my car before work, and in 5 minutes I wrote the lyrics to Lucille, and I had the melody in my head. He comes over on a Sunday, and he starts dumping these tracks onto my computer, and I'm like, dude, watch this. I take the paper out, and I'm like, Lucille, devoid of joy, Lucille. And it fit exactly what he gave me.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, he was picturing it as a techno song.
Oh, yeah, no. When I
Called
originally...
it Lewd Night or something like that.
Yeah, I was going to call it Lewd Night just because I wanted it to be about a night in the city going to clubs.
Debauchery.
Debaucherous, like, go back to the golden age, the early 90s at the Limelight, where people were having sex in the bathrooms and doing lines of coke on the bar and shit. And, you know, I sent him a little snippet via my cell phone, a little video clip. He's like, oh, dude, can you record that and send it to me? I'm like, all right, fine. And I I sent him the track, and he had taken it, put it on his computer, carved it up before I even brought over my entire rig over here.
Before I even got the stems, I already had this little snippet, and I'm
everything
dicing it up and laying it out.
And I was kind of taken back. I'm like, wow, I literally worked a few nights on this, and in a week, he took the baton, sprinted to the finish line, had lyrics, and he started the playback. And I was skeptical because he told me about the lyrical content. I'm like, that's not what I envisioned. But once he started singing it together,
and I'm praising God for killing someone.
Yeah, I'm picturing driving around New York City like with chicks in the fucking passenger seat, like, hey babe, let's go for a ride, that shit. And he starts singing it. I'm like, dude, this fucking works. I'm like, I love it. I can't say no to this. It's just wow. All right, let's do this. And we recorded everything and finalized it. He took it, added more stuff to it, some killer drums, some arpeggiated synth work into it. And I guess when he took it to the studio, JB added more stuff to it. And I mean, the final outtake on it, I was like kind of taken back, like, wow.
Well, I even had to some of the
synth sounds.
Yeah, I believe they were FM, like TX or something. Is it possible TX81Z or something?
No, I mean it's all rolling. In fact, some of the stuff I remember he was saying like, oh, that sounds like a 303. It's like, it was my TB3. You literally just took a note and then you sampled.
Well, the problem I had was that there was a lot of reverb on it, and it was just clouding up the mix. So rather than, and he said, well, I can't send you the stems without reverb because I recorded everything in,
I took it right off his
brought
hardware.
everything over here.
Yeah, and I didn't even put extra reverb on it. That was the funny thing.
Some of the presets have it built in, but anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I know the JP8000. I think that was the one you actually questioned me about.
Yes,
that has a whole lot of chorus built into the patch.
All right. Well, it was the 303 sounds because what I decided to do was to recreate them. So I took a 303 sound and matched it and figured out your notes and sequenced it and in some cases used a little bit of both. In other cases mine came out and was able to basically do what I was trying to do, which was to get rid of some of that ambience and have the sound cut through, but at the same time not changing anything about the music. I mean, that's I think what a real good producer,
Yeah, and it came out great, and I thank you for the work that you put into it.
Absolutely, it's.
I showed you a couple times.
There are a few people who have said already within a week of release that is their favorite track. I know Ian's a big fan of that track.
It's kind of become one of my favorite tracks, if not my favorite track, right for the moment. I keep bouncing back and forth, but I've been really enjoying that one.
Yeah, that is actually a great snapshot of what the difference is on this album. Dark Progression is I opened it up and I brought in anything that we thought of, and you know what? Another big difference is Ian. Actually, Ian was our percussionist on Wretched Things. He really didn't. Well, I didn't invite him to participate in the creation of the album. On this album, he got very involved in arrangements because I started to slowly realize this guy really knows music. So I'd be down here, drinking and working on a song. Ian would pop over, and 7 hours go by, and we rearranged it. He's adding backing vocals, which your backing vocals on this album are amazing. Last song?
Oh, Somber Town.
Somber Town, yes. Your screaming in Somber Town is insanely good.
I remember standing right there doing that.
Yes. And then the next day you couldn't talk.
Yeah.
But
no voice.
You added a really, really nice element to this album that gave it a whole nother vibe. Bringing in Traece as a co-writer on one song, Brian Fitzpatrick as a co-writer on one song, bringing in John Bechdel to add slide guitar. Chosen One, co-written by JB. He did all the music on Chosen One. I just wrote the lyrics and
my
sang
all-time
it.
favorite on the album. Yeah, I'll be honest. That and Texas.
Well, that was a song that I had written just to crank out some ideas, potentially for ministry. But if they weren't going to make it into a ministry, then they might be false icons. But at the same time, and there was like 20 or 30 basic ideas that I threw together, and that particular one just jumped out at me as like, this could work as a Chmcl Str8jckt song. And I remember I was here.
Yes, let me interject because again, as fanboy, a till recently not very well-developed songwriter. I have our producer over, and we're friends, and we're having I think it was a pool party that day, and then the next day we're listening to music, and you brought out your laptop and you said, "Here's something I wrote for Ministry, but I think it suits you better." And
awesome.
right there, like, I go into AFib. I go into AFib, and I'm like, so I'm like, yeah, I got to play it cool. So, all right, so this was written for Ministry, but you think it's more like Chmcl Str8jckt. All right, let me hear this. So it was, I think it was about 60 seconds. It was the loops.
It was a riff,
the riffs, the loops.
It wasn't structured yet,
Right.
but I had some killer riffs.
Oh, really good. So I'm listening to it, and I'm instantly like, hey, can't you see what I've become? Hey. And then this is all in my head as I'm listening to it. I'm like, yes, I want it. And it was, wasn't it your birthday a week later?
It could have been. It was August, so yeah, sure.
Yeah. So he leaves the track, and I did the same thing that I did with Trace, is I parsed it up and laid it out and mapped it out into,
full
verse,
song.
chorus, bridge, and I wrote the lyrics about a sniper, because that's I've read so many books about snipers. I find them fascinating. And
Not exactly what I had in mind.
again, it wasn't what he had in mind. He wanted it to be a love song. I wrote it about a sniper. I actually wrote it about a sniper getting a hard-on while he pulls the trigger.
It is a love song.
So it is. He makes love to his rifle.
My target.
Loves the pink mist.
Yes. He loves the sanguine spray. So I wrote that. I wrote the lyrics, mapped it out, and I think it was 4 days later was his birthday, I believe. So 3 days later, I sent him the demo of what I did with what he gave me.
Yeah.
And it was like, happy birthday. Here's a song. It's your music. It's my vocals. Then we decided it needed to be on the album because it's very strong. The music's excellent. And then he put a lot more time into producing it and really fleshing it out. And there it is. A lot of people, Tom Farrelly says it's,
Yeah, when I hear it too, it kind of hits home like really special for some reason. Just because I've never, I don't think, really written a song for somebody like that before.
Yeah, it was an interesting process, right?
Yeah, we're talking about doing more of that.
We are actually
True
talking about doing more of that.
collaboration.
Maybe a EP or something, but where JB does the music and I write the lyrics and do the vocals.
Because we don't have enough other things going.
We're not busy enough.
Never enough.
I've been sleeping lately, and that sucks. So I
Yeah,
need
what the
to end
hell?
that.
I already gave you another song to
I
work
need
with.
to end that. Well, I mean, on the floor over there is
yeah.
the next Str8jckt and Handsome Abominations list.
Right, and actually, that brings us to the next question, which is Chmcl Str8jckt is not the only band that you're involved in. You also have another project called Handsome Abominations. How did that come together?
That's a great question. And that involves Ian and Misha, who are both here, and Trace. I'll tell my story, and then I think you should go around the room. But for me, it was this Str8jckt album, Dark Progression, was a bit of an obsession for me. Like, I really dove into it. I wrote and rewrote and rewrote. And, I mean, this is my baby. I love this album. But it was a lot of work.
Yeah.
The material's really dark. And some of it is personal, even though it may not sound personal because I disguise it as something else. So it was really a emotional process for me. And when it was done, when the last edit came in and I was like, it's a wrap, I still had some material left. I had some discarded Str8jckt songs that just didn't fit Str8jckt because they were too groovy, too funky, because that's a big side of me. I like the filthy groove. I'm a big Thrill Kill fan. I love that
A little
shit.
more sexually charged.
Yes.
Lords of Acid.
Topically.
Yeah, and that comes
Yeah.
out here and there. It comes out in Sacred Robe. It comes out in some of our songs. But
That's to me where it started was Sacred Rope.
I don't let it be a focal point for Str8jckt because that's not what Str8jckt is. But I had still like 5 or 6 sets of lyrics, and I felt like, oh my god, that album's done. I want to fucking party. But I want to musically party.
Okay.
Like, let's throw down some shit and have fun and just get crazy. We had Tufty over in Ireland, who's a great programmer, and I've become really good friends with through Facebook. And his band is called, well, he's a one-man band called Biohacker. But he has this catalog of songs that are perfectly mapped out, and they have verses, choruses, bridges, I mean, not a lyric anywhere.
Oh, wow.
Multiple albums, and it's all just instrumental, and there's not a lyric anywhere. So I'm driving around town in my truck one day when we had just finished Dark Progression, and I'm driving around listening to Biohacker, and I mean, he's such a great guy. He's got a great sense of humor. I knew we could work together. And I'm listening to multiple tracks of his, and it's the same thing that I told you earlier today. I'm like, oh my God, I know what lyric should go here. I can picture the lyrical structure, and, there is no such thing as love. And, so I write to him. I'm like, I pull over in Branchville, right in front of the church. Because why wouldn't it be? And I send him an instant message, and I'm like, Tufty, I'm listening to your shit in my truck. You need vocals, and I want to do it. And I have leftover material. I have Str8jckt songs that aren't Str8jckt songs, blah, blah, blah. Let's have some fun. He instantly writes back, whatever, in his British way. Irish way.
Irish.
Yes, sorry.
Wrong accent.
Right, mate. Let's do it right away, And I'm like, all right, cool. And that was Australian, wasn't it?
Close enough.
Whatever.
That was like Crocodile Dundee.
But yeah, he was actually at a point where he was burnt out and it was ready to stop doing all music. So it was a perfect combination. And then, of course, at this point with Dark Progression, Ian has become my partner in the studio, which is right here, and arrangements and all that. And so I'm like, Ian, I know we just finished 14 songs, and we were going to do 15 or 16, and then I was like, you know what, let's give JB a break. Because the next song that I was doing was a reinterpretation of a Who song, which had orchestra and strings, and I was like, you know what, all right, it's time to stop. So we tabled that. That will resurface on the next album. But we tabled that, and we said, let's just have a fucking good time. Let's get Misha involved. Then we realized for a live show we needed someone else. I hit up Trace because we had that great rapport from Death of Lucille, and got him on board. And we're ready working on the next album, which you've written a few tracks for.
Yep.
But we recorded 8 tracks for Abominations. I think it's 8.
I believe that's the track listing, yeah.
Okay. And upon first listen to Slave, Cleopatra signed us.
Oh, nice.
So that album hasn't come out yet because I think they wanted to let Dark Progression build up an audience.
Right. Yeah.
And then we piggyback it.
Yeah, you don't want to cannibalize yourself.
And then we say, hey, you like Dark Progression, here's our side project, that type of thing. So yes, we do have the Handsome Abominations project, which is very alive and very well. An album coming out this year on Cleopatra, and we've already written half of the next album.
Yep.
So that will be definitely around for a while. But yeah, that was the idea behind that, right? It was to blow off some steam and have fun.
Yeah.
And
we
realize
have
what we couldn't do in Str8jckt, because you always wanted to cover Relax. You've been chirping that in my ear for like 2 years.
Yeah, it's true, because actually I've been wanting to do that for a long time, actually.
Cover horn.
Yeah.
And it was...
Well, I know, because I remember when I told you we're going to cover Relax, you were like, be careful. That's a Trevor Horn. You better do it right.
I always heard like a darker arrangement to that, and I've never been in a band that could do anything close to what I heard in my head, and I thought it was time to update it a bit, So it just seemed like the perfect time to do that, and we had time to kill. Quarantine had just hit.
True.
And, both
We
of
would
us
only see
had
each
time
other,
to kill for
basically.
a while. Yeah, and living close together, we were able to get together frequently and not socially distance properly and work on things. And
Those songs, that was pure debauchery.
yeah.
That was
Antisocial distancing.
that was train
Social
wreck city,
distancing,
man. When we were going to work on an
horizontal
Abomination song, we knew we were going to be hurting the next day.
It was about getting into that vibe to make it feel like a party.
Yeah, well, that's the whole
Therefore,
thing.
cleally it wasn't industrial.
No, it's not at all industrial.
If
I don't know
fun,
what it is.
if there's fun
Yeah.
involved.
We're not all mopey.
There's no hatred, self-hatred, self-loathing. There's no depression. That's a party album.
It's because of you. You did this to me.
For us, the black bags under our eyes are because we didn't sleep well.
All right. Well, you said you wanted to go around the room. You've had your say,
send it around,
and so
please.
is Ian. And Misha, what about you? How do you feel about the Handsome Abominations project?
It's fun. It's a lot of fun. You know, the songs are crazy, they're upbeat, they're dancey, and they've made me like this focal point on stage. I have these big boxes that I stand on with lights, and I play videos and wear skimpy clothes. And
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Our mistress.
Sounds good to everyone.
Beat them a little bit sometimes.
Pinup girls.
It's a lot of fun though, and it's a good side project. It's totally different for Kevin, so it's a different change of mental, not stress, but relief, I guess. You know, because Str8jckt is just so serious, and it's, you know, this big thing, and then he goes to Abominations, and it's like, woo, whiskey,
Anything goes.
let's
Yeah.
party.
Anything goes.
It's just fun. It's really silly and a lot of fun.
Well, that's awesome. And then Craig, Trace, you know, you I guess you kind of got pulled into this a little bit after the fact.
Yeah, the ironic thing is Kevin would send me all the Str8jckt songs. Be like, oh, check this out, check this out. And then he sent me the title track of the album for Handsome Abominations. I was like, oh, I like this song. It's pretty cool, this and that. And then he sent me, you know, there is no such thing as love. And I'm like, God, the lyrics to me are just like Lords of Acid. I love this because it's just pure lust. And I'm like, this is just awesome. And then I guess after everything with Lucille was recorded and you know, he had most of the dark progression done with, he sent me an email, and I don't check my email very much. And he sent me a text, check your email. I'm like, okay.
Dude, I sent you an email. Why didn't you write back yet?
Yeah, I'm like, all right, cool. So I checked my email on command.
Yeah.
And
You've had 10 minutes.
yeah. Sorry, they don't alert on my phone. I haven't.
Fix that.
Oh, I thought she was Mistress Misha. You were, you know, sorry. So anyway, I look at it and it's like, I want you to be the next Abomination. I'm like, wait, what? Wait,
like
you're
Uncle
talking to
Sam.
me? It's like, wait, you mean the guy behind me or something, right? And so I'm like, holy shit, am I good enough to do this? It's like every band I've been in before this was, oh, I'm just the bass player. Oh, I'm just this. I'm just this. And finally, it's just like Kevin recognizes, like, well, you did good on that track. I want you to be part of this. I need you to live play this for this album, and going forward, we'll see what happens with new songs. And I was like, damn, this is an honor. Thanks. You know, I don't want to let you down. So I'm gonna, you know. And I texted him. I'm like, I'm learning these songs. I'm gonna do my best to try to learn these in the next couple weeks. And it was probably within the first week or two. He's like, we're filming the video for the title track this weekend. I'm like, what? Oh, I barely even know how to play it yet. He's like, don't worry about it. It's just, you're going to be like lip syncing. I'm like, all right, sounds good to me. So, yeah, he says, make sure your car is nice and shiny and polished, and we're going to be driving that for the intro. I'm like, all right, done. I had a Wednesday off that week, so car got parked in the garage till the end of the week. And, yeah, we filmed it, and it was been a roller coaster ride since then. It's been awesome.
Just wait till we start playing live shows.
Oh, I fucking can't wait. So.
And to Craig's credit, I didn't make a mistake by inviting him, because he showed up for the first practice on time and knew every fucking song. He could play the songs live on keyboards. He knew the backing vocals. And, yeah, it was perfect. Perfect fit. So, yeah, this little crazy party will continue, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
That's awesome. And as you said, all of the Handsome Abominations is more debaucherous and more party like than the music of Chmcl Str8jckt.
Yes, absolutely. There's nothing serious on Handsome Abominations. It is all just goofy, fun, filth.
Yeah.
One of the things that happened, actually, another thing that spawned Abominations, not to get too far into the weeds, but Ian and I, we knew that between Wretched Things and Dark Progression, there was a big space of time. So I wanted to do some remixes. So we shopped out a couple remixes to people that we love their work. But I wanted to do Love and Cactus, which I thought were the most underrated songs from Wretched Things, and I wanted to do them really groovy. And my favorite part of programming is bass lines. I love programming bass lines. So we don't have a bass player, obviously.
Right.
In Chmcl Str8jckt, it's all usually me on a synth. Sometimes it's JB filling in if I didn't put in something good enough. Occasionally it's Mike on a real bass guitar, but 90% of our bass lines are me on a synthesizer. When we did Remix, we did Love and Cactus, me and Ian, I really got into making these funky, filthy grooves, and I was like, I want to do more of this. But I know it's not Str8jckt. So it allowed me that outlet too. Doing Handsome Abominations, I could do these dancey grooves and filthy. I mean, it's just dirty music. You need a shower after you listen to that album.
It was clearly a different thing.
Yeah.
There was definitely a line between the two that it just wasn't going to be something we were going to do as Chmcl Str8jckt.
Right. And not to emulate Jorgensen, but it kind of reminds me of, you have Ministry, which is very serious and you put a lot of work into, and then you fucking goof around on Revolting Cocks.
Yeah, kind of a release, and also a lot of songs, that he writes, he just writes, and so, it might not turn out that it's really meant for Ministry, but that's okay, because he's got all these other projects. And the first time I met Al was early in 91. We were rehearsing in Chicago with Killing Joke, and it was very cold, and Raven and I were out, and he goes, hey, let's go visit Al. So we went over to Chicago Talks. I had met Chris Connolly, Bill Rieflin, Paul Barker, Andrew Martin. The only people I hadn't met, really, and I knew William Tucker from the Jersey days. Martin had brought him in. So really, the only people I really hadn't met was Mikey and Al. So Raven said, hey, let's go over and hang out with Al. He was at Chicago Tracks, and we popped in, and I remember they buzzed us in, and we were stepping over junkies that were just passed out on the floor, and something going on over there. I don't know what that is. I'm just going this way. And we get into the studio, and Al's just running around with his cowboy hat on, yelling at people. Critter was behind the desk. And really, it was just Al. There was a big, tall rack of samplers, and Michael Bolsh was just leaning up against it in Frontline Assembly, just kind of like waiting for something to happen, and introduced myself to him, and Raven, was just chilling out, and Al was laying down a guitar solo, and the song was called Cracking Up. So this was actually Psalm...
Crack.
Yeah, this was Psalm sessions. So this was the creation of Psalm 69. But, because I journaled a lot, because these were big, exciting things. Today met Al Jorgensen.
Right.
Got up, had coffee, met Al Jorgensen. and then I wrote down that they were working on this song called Cracking Up. But yes, it never made it onto Psalm 69. It became a Revolting Cock song. But what was funny was that they recorded the guitar solo, and he's like, cool. And Critter's like, I don't know if it's in tune, Al. And Al's like, well, what do you mean? He's like, I don't think your guitar is in tune. He's like, well, does anybody have a tuner? And there's no tuner in the whole recording studio. He's like, fuck, what are you going to do? He's like, so I was like, I know, we'll call Bill Rieflin. He has perfect pitch. So he calls up Bill Rieflin on the phone in Seattle. Bill's like, hello. Like, hey, it's Al. Listen to this track. And he holds it up to the speaker, and they play the solo. Is that in tune? No, Al, that's not in tune. He's like, fuck, hangs it up. Can't you just put it through a harmonizer?
Can you fix it in the edit?
The only way
We'll fix it in post.
You have to tune the guitar and replay the solo. And then I got my chance to talk to him, and I'm like, oh, hey, Al, just like, such a huge fan, and I totally fanboyed out on him. I was just like, I love your music, and he was like, oh, well, I don't really know what I'm doing. It's like other people. I don't know. Do you want to be on this record? You can be on this next Ministry record. I was like, oh, okay. Like, come down tomorrow. I'm like, okay, I did, and it was more of the same, stepping over junkies and him just ranting and raving. And I was like, yeah, no, this isn't quite what I had in mind.
That's funny.
Handsome Abominations. How did you come up with the name?
Oh, okay. So this fellow, Steve Thomas Green, he runs Ghost Wave Radio in the UK, and we've become very good friends. So he, myself, and Tufty were having this insult fest, as we often do, where we just like rip into each other, and Tufty posted something, and I wrote something to the effect that I love your music. I think we should work together. You have really great compositions. You just need lyrics. and Steve chimed in something, "Oh, great, the two of you are having sex now." And Tufty wrote, "Yes, we're going to have a beautiful baby." And I wrote, "Yes, it'll be a Handsome Abomination."
Oh.
And Steve wrote, "Brilliant name for a band." And Tufty was like, "Yes, I want to play it. I want you to write lyrics for me." And I was like, "Well, then I guess we are the Handsome Abominations, aren't we?" And that was it. It was done.
There you go.
It was, one little string of posts.
Hopefully one day we can play over in Ireland with him.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Yeah.
I'd love to get over there and meet both him and Steve.
Yeah.
And as a quick side note, Steve, he was getting a bit tired doing Ghost Wave Radio, so Chmcl Str8jckt bought half of the station, and we're going to go to a 24/7 format. It's going to be on nonstop, and we're going to do a bunch of shows, and it's going to be exciting. We're going to launch that in April. Yeah, April Fool's Day. Yes, April
Well, since
1st.
there isn't some guy down in Georgia with a band called Handsome Abominations, don't have to drop any vowels or syllables or anything.
We'll have to lose the vowels again.
No, we'll lose the consonants.
Oh my God! Could you imagine if it was just vowels? Oh yeah, it'd be like R.
Let's play along.
It'd be so soft. It'd be like a gooey, wet piece of cake. Can't even pronounce it. It's gelatinous.
It's a dyslexia.
Like that stuff,
Lixdexia.
it's the stuff you wipe up off the bed after a fun night.
That's called semen.
Well, the
Hopefully that's all
mixture
it
of all the fluids.
All right, get us back
All
on
right,
track.
well, at this point,
with you?
we are at the signature question, which is
Where can we find your music?
which is how do you feel? How do you feel about the current state of the music industry, where fans would rather illegally download or subscribe to services such as Spotify instead of buying your music because they feel that bands make all their money at shows, which hasn't been a thing for the last year because coronavirus.
I'll try to keep it concise and quick, but it's hard to. So the thing that shocked me the most when I got back into music, because I only did it recently, was the messages that I would get on various platforms, whether it was Instagram or Facebook, of people saying, "Where can I get your music for free?" They would actually say that.
It seems very insulting.
Douche.
Yeah.
You know what? It's just the culture.
Right.
It is the way it is now. Where can I download it? Where can I listen to it? I want it for free. And I was shocked at first because we offered up our debut at $4. $4 on Bandcamp. And I said, you know what? Our debut is cheaper than a mocha latte or whatever the fuck they sell at Starbucks. 'Cause that shit pisses me off.
Yeah.
I can't walk up to a Starbucks and go, "Give me a black coffee." I have to say, "Give me a tall,
No,
pisses me off."
I order a large
Sorry.
regular, and if they tell me I need to order a venti or anything like that, then I go, no. This is America. I'm not learning a foreign language.
It's a fucking
Give me a
coffee.
large coffee.
Give me a black coffee.
Regular.
Give me a coffee, light and sweet.
All right, so I
I
digress.
don't like that.
And that's actually in our song, Texas.
Or that
I don't want a latte. I feel so much better.
or that like you might be playing a show at a local venue, 10 other bands, and like, oh yeah, there's like a $5 cover, $5 to see 10 bands.
Right. Yeah. 10 bands who have worked their asses off, who own all this equipment, who
Go
have
out the
put
parking lot,
years into
straight down off the
practicing.
floor.
And you can't pony up $10 for a ticket at the door. Actually, we have a friend. He is part of the music industry, and he's become a good friend of Str8jckt. But every time we play, he asks me if he could be on the guest list because he doesn't want to pay at the door. And I mean, that's just. I'm the opposite. I want to buy your CD. I want to buy your shirt.
Yeah,
I want to
Actually,
help
Kev,
you.
Kev, I got a question. The next Abomination show, can I get a comp ticket?
We'll think about
you
that
are
when
gonna
you
be the
guest
roadie.
list, man. We'll think about that.
I can move stuff.
But the truth is, yeah, it's sad that music has become devalued, just as most art has, because of internet and easy access. But the flip side is you have to embrace it.
Yeah.
You have to, like I said earlier, you either change or you disappear.
Yeah.
You
Go
know,
out to a
so
restaurant and say, how can I get a free meal, or like
Yeah.
walk in and not expect to pay. You know what I mean? Like, or go to
If it were
go to
only
the
that
hardware
easy.
store and buy a whole bunch of shit and be like, can I just have this for free? I mean, it's like, what's so special about music that people think we don't work, or they think, oh, we do it because we want to be rock stars, or we love to do it. You know, I don't understand. I mean,
Well, how can you be a rock star if nobody pays you?
Yeah.
No,
Be a
it
star
is.
without
We can lament the situation, and we should, and we do often. All of us here in this room talk about it quite a bit because, your hard work, and I'm not complaining because I've only started doing this recently as a hobby.
Right.
Right. I didn't devote my life to it. I didn't study it. I didn't work tirelessly at it. Right. For me, this is a hobby because I built my career.
Yeah.
And I was able to come back to this, which I'm very, very happy about.
How'd you jump the line?
Hard work.
Wow, that's
I mean,
a thing?
How did we
Yeah.
get to this point where in the
Heard that a
90s,
few
I mean,
times.
the average CD cost $18.99, and we found out later that really to produce that CD was relatively cheap, a few dollars, right? Maybe $4.
This CD is just under $4.
That's a lot. That's high quality.
That's a 16-page book.
yeah.
It's a beautiful CD.
And so
Holding up a copy of the new Chmcl Str8jckt album, Dark Progression, by the way.
yeah,
so-
sorry, there's no...
so
There's
then,
visuals
here.
here.
so
plug in, get the
then
plug in.
Okay, so
You need to tell all your viewers.
the artist would make $1 that they would have to split not only amongst all the band members who had publishing, but even often 20% right off the top to their management
Manager,
company. So they're looking at cents on the copy, and then the stores, like I said, selling it for $18.99, and I'm like, where's this other $14 or $15 going? You know, the artist gets $1. The cost of making it was $4. So, you know, do you mean to tell me that these retailers, you know, are making all that extra profit? I don't think so, you know, because a lot of them went out of business, right?
Right.
So it must have been going to the record labels. But there was, at one point, a class action lawsuit aimed at the music industry for price gouging.
Yeah.
And Universal Music Group was like, oh, well, you know, hey, maybe we can sell them for $13.99, you know, to avoid.
Oh, yeah. I
Yeah,
remember that.
so
Yeah, yeah.
everything dropped. It's like just like that. But, you know, of course, the artist still got...
So the bottom line is the artist has always been raped,
Yeah,
basically.
and somebody somewhere was making a lot of money. And there's a really famous story about David Bowie at one point in his career realizing he had no money, you know. He had like $30 in his pocket or something, and he was like, "What, man? I've got all these people who work for me, and I've made all these hit records, and what's going on here?" And he took a deep, hard look at his finances and realized that he really didn't need all of these lawyers and managers and handlers and things, and
Bloodsuckers.
yeah, he sold his publishing for like, I think, $800 million or something like that, and took charge of his enterprise.
So it's basically meet the new boss, same as
Well,
the old boss.
that seems to be a thing right now. I was reading recently about there's a lawsuit between Chris Cornell's widow and the rest of the members of Soundgarden about trying to sell the publishing to
I think
Soundgarden.
they settled that.
Oh, did they?
Like just settled that. just
Okay.
recently.
Because I just saw that. I was like, and she, you know, she's trying to buy it from them, and they're trying to sell, or they're trying to buy her share, and it's a whole fucking thing that seems to be going on more lately because although no one is buying music, people seem to be buying up the catalogs of bands that may make money.
Yeah, and because some bands aren't making money now because they can't tour. Well, Bob Dylan just sold his entire catalog in publishing. Trying to remember what the figure was.
Somebody bought it?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah, wow.
I got
I
20
don't know. I
cents.
want to say like
It's like millions of dollars.
well, like
probably, right?
30 million or something like that.
Who would pay? Oh my god.
Well, you know what?
It's
You know what? As long as his
lot of
voice
old
isn't
hippies
on it,
still
it's
live.
probably good.
I love when people cover Bob Dylan's music.
Yes. I love when Bob Dylan's not doing
When
Bob
he
Dylan's
is not
music.
involved, his music is awesome.
Yeah, a great writer.
I feel that way
Right.
about some bands that I may not name out loud because it might get
gonna
me
catch hell for
crucified.
that.
But there are covers of bands that I like way better than the bands.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But back to the current state of the music industry. So, yeah, I showed you earlier before you started recording that in 1 week, the Dark Progression has had almost 11,000 streams on Spotify,
Right.
and that equals $1.50.
That much?
Probably not, actually. It's probably $1.25.
Doesn't even pay the electricity. You,
It's not even
wasted on
enough
the
to
computer
buy a
at the-
latte.
And we
Not even a
split that
small
with the record
And it's
latte.
definitely not minimum wage, at least not in the U.S., maybe in China.
No, the amount of hours that were played.
It's pushing it even in China.
But again, this is a hobby for me. My sadness is for the young artist, the
Yeah.
young group who's starting and doesn't have, I've been a pharmacist for decades.
Yeah, like Billie Eilish, I
I'm
feel so
fine.
bad for her, you know.
I don't know who she is.
That's a she?
Really weird that
Is it a
she's
she?
green and black hair. Yeah.
Duh.
I'm guessing she's broody.
Yes, indeed.
But yeah, for somebody who doesn't have capital to invest, because the only way you promote your music is by spending money.
Right.
And in the past, I mean, I read articles. I think it was Marcy Playground. They had a song, "Closing Time." Is that them?
That was Supersonic, Sega Mega. It was not Marcy Playground was Sex and Candy.
Oh, okay, yes,
Yeah,
it was Sex and Candy.
Yep.
The record company spent $1.5 million to get that song played on the radio.
Wow.
They payola to the radio stations to get it played.
Yeah, and that's the way
And
everything
see,
works now.
And then it drills into your head, and you have Stockholm syndrome, and you can't help but think,
Plus
I want
radio.
sex and candy. But if you don't have resources to invest into promoting yourself, you'll never. I mean, no, you could write a great song. You could be Nirvana, and if somebody's not backing you, if you don't have promotion,
It's like old school vaudeville now.
I was going to say, I remember your old band, Sufferance. When we talked about this, when I talked to you, you had such a following among our friend group that me and our friend Shiz actually drove up to Poughkeepsie, to WRRV, with your CD, and gave it to the front desk, and then called into their request show and said, play the song. Like, we don't have that. Yeah, you do. I just dropped it off.
Yeah.
And then they played it, and then they didn't play it again because I believe they criticized the production of the EP, but like we were able to get that done.
that is
Well,
called
the problem
commitment
was
and
they
hard
played
work.
the first
They played the first
track,
track, which had
was
like
the
a
longest damn intro,
Yeah.
and the guitarist insisted on having that being the first track on the album because that was his favorite song.
Well, you never listen
guitar,
to
guitar,
guitarists.
guitar.
Never.
Yeah, fuck guitars.
Now,
All right.
how do you feel, in addition to the current state of the music industry, how do you feel about how the entertainment industry as a whole has adapted to not being able to have live shows during COVID? I know Str8jckt took part in a live stream for New Year's Eve, for example.
We did. That was the one and only live stream. We won't do that again. Not that it was bad. It's just not the same as playing live. Like I like to have an audience. I like to feed off people. Even when we play to 30 people, which has happened a couple times, you feel that energy coming back, and you convert them. Your mission that night is to convert them into fans, and you work towards it over a 45-minute period, and you win them. You don't do that in a live stream. There's no connection.
Stream is not,
I don't know who's watching us, who's not watching us. Maybe I'm old school, but I don't care for live streaming.
It's one thing if you're sitting there with a computer next to you reading their comments, but if you're performing, you can't do that.
No, and I can't make eye contact with you. I can't demand that you watch me.
You can't interact at all.
Right. So live streaming is definitely not for us. Or I should say not for me. I'm not sure. I don't think Ian liked it either.
It was all right. It was basically like a practice, a rehearsal.
Yes.
Except we had a handful of friends here.
Right.
We
I would do it.
we
'cause, I mean,
we
like,
had a little mini New Year's Eve party for that event, and it worked out okay that time.
Yeah, I would do it, with false icons. I would, because typically you don't have a whole lot of people at our shows, and I'd just like to get it out there and just, be able to see it. But yeah, the fact that it didn't sound like full, that is a valid point. But yeah, sure, I totally understand it. But
No, I do understand it. I just, as a consumer of music, as a fan, I like to feel the bass.
Yeah.
I like to see the artist in front of me, and it doesn't come through on a small
laptop
screen.
or something.
Yeah, a laptop,
Yep.
right? Because they don't have a subwoofer hooked up. All the
You don't
effort that you
feel
put into
it.
making it sound perfect
Yeah,
is not
yeah.
coming through on someone's laptop.
I mean, unless they're wearing headphones, good quality headphones or something.
Yeah,
but
which
you're
isn't
right.
anybody.
Most people aren't when they're sitting at their desktop.
Right, which I could speak to actually earlier today. I was listening to some music on my computer while I was doing prep for the interview with JB that we did earlier. And I was listening to some music that I had gotten recently, and between the fact that it was a download versus like a rip from the CD, and then it wasn't a great headset. It sounded like garbage. And I know that it doesn't sound like that because I've heard the songs on the radio, and they sound better than what I was listening to today. So I gotta figure that out.
Yeah, so quick answer, not a fan of live streaming. I don't want to do it again, and I've never watched anyone else's.
Okay, fair enough.
I don't intend to.
Now, the last time that we hung out, we had a conversation about vinyl that I wanted to revisit.
I don't remember it.
Okay, well, no. When we were here for... two times ago that we hung out. We had a conversation about vinyl that I wanted to revisit. I have personally never understood why, on one hand, music sales are down drastically, but there's also been a renewed demand for artists to release their new albums on vinyl. What are your thoughts?
Okay, so I'm telling you right now that Dark Progression is coming out on vinyl.
Oh, it is. Well, that is a change from the last time we had this talk.
Yes, it is a change. And last weekend we had a band dinner at Mike's house, the guitarist, and we discussed our plans for the future, and vinyl was approved and it's being paid for, so it's happening.
Okay.
There will be Dark Progression on vinyl, 100%.
Okay.
Personally, I'm not involved in it, but that's fine. I'm thrilled that it's happening.
Okay.
I'm going to send this question to someone in the room who actually does collect vinyl and ask her why she buys vinyl and why she enjoys listening to it. It's Sandy Datcher, who Chmcl Str8jckt refers to as the catalyst.
Yes.
Okay.
The catalyst. What's your
So
answer?
how do you
Why
feel
hate vinyl?
about vinyl?
It's the only way I love to listen to music. If I'm not in a car and we're listening to music, it's at home on the turntable on vinyl. It's
What is it that you like about it? Is it the ritual of putting that big disc
everything.
on?
It's everything. I love the jackets. I love the vinyl. I love
The art,
putting it on
awesome.
everything, and then listening to it. It's what I grew up listening to. I grew up listening to CDs or MP3s. Grew up listening to analog music on vinyl. It's the warmth. It just sounds so much better, even when it cracks. I love the sound of it. I don't know. John can probably add something to it
The
as
aesthetic,
well.
yeah, and when I first bought into a CD player, it was a little late in the game, like '88 maybe. They were quite expensive at first, and the idea was that I already had a lot of really good records, so my theory too was that initially CDs were mostly just like mainstream and pop stuff. Like I'm not going to find my obscure Fad Gadget record on CD. Well, of course, eventually you actually could.
Right.
And as I would go into record stores, the vinyl section seemed to get smaller and smaller, and the CD section got bigger and bigger. And one day I walked in, and lo and behold, I'm like, "Where's the vinyl?" There wasn't any. And I was like, because I never thought that they were going to just completely do away with vinyl.
Yeah.
I just thought that CDs, would be an alternative. So it was really quite a moment. So yeah, I finally sucked it up and got a CD player and bought a CD. And I was really impressed with the clarity. There's no tape noise. You didn't have the kind of crackling and the popping of that you would hear on a vinyl, or the dropping of the groove or anything like that. But it didn't take long for me to go like, where is it? There's something missing.
The ambiance is not there.
Well, it wasn't as warm.
We hear stuff on vinyl that sometimes we never even heard when we listened to the same track on a CD.
It's not as warm and dynamic, and it's a digital representation. It's actually not an accurate, real representation of the music, whereas a vinyl is a waveform taken from the direct master recording and transferred onto a piece of vinyl, and so you're really hearing the actual sound of the original recording. But a CD digitizes it. It's a 16-bit 44.1 sampling rate. So if you were to look at it, close up, it wouldn't look like a nice smooth waveform. It would be like steps.
Yeah.
And so it's a facsimile of the original music. And I remember Neil Young from the beginning was a very strong advocate against CD technology, saying the same thing, that vinyl sounded better. Turns out that a lot of it had to do with that vinyl's expensive. It's a petroleum product.
Right.
So CDs were way cheaper. They were smaller,
very
more compact.
environmental.
Yeah, and the cool thing about vinyl too was that you could actually see the artwork And some of them opened up, and some of them had the lyrics, and you didn't need a microscope to be able to read the print, you know. And well, you couldn't roll a joint, you know.
Break up that binding.
And then by the time you try to open it up with all the theft protection stuff, you end up breaking the little tabs off, or they're already broken. You pull the shrink wrap off, and the whole thing falls on the floor, and the little tabs have already been broken off. You know, and it was just so unesthetic compared to, you know, that vinyl and dropping it on, and just goes to show that it's back with a vengeance.
Well, that's the thing that I've noticed is that recently, like I said, as demand for music in general seems to dwindle, you can go into Best Buy, you can go into Target, and they have a section of vinyl, and it's really hard to find CDs. Although Best Buy tends to have them in like a clearance bin off to the fucking side somewhere. But that seems to be...
nobody has a CD player anymore.
Well, right.
You going to Best Buy?
Occasionally.
And computers have done away with ROM drives.
If you buy
a car right now, it doesn't have a CD
I just bought a new computer, and I had to buy a separate optical drive because they don't come in the tower anymore.
We tried to give away CDs with false icons. You know, they bought a T-shirt. Hey, here I have a CD. I'm like, what am I going to do with this?
Coaster.
Millennials.
I mean, I will say that I still buy CDs like crazy.
Okay,
I mean,
boomer. No, they don't realize Gen X happened.
Nearly.
I know. I'm just saying. That's
Dad is
their
a boomer.
Yeah, that's their answer. They don't remember Gen X.
But that's I have 90% of my life is in a storage unit right now. But I have so many fucking CDs, and I do appreciate that. Looking around this room, Kevin, you also have very many CDs.
Oh yeah, no, I always
1,000.
I always buy the CD. I might listen to it. I might listen to it on iTunes or Spotify, and then if there's a song that I like a lot, then I just purchase it. And I go to Bandcamp because artists know that that's where artists go to help other artists.
One time at band camp.
So, as we mentioned before, you recently released a new album for Chmcl Str8jckt, but you can't play any shows to support it due to COVID restrictions. Well, you already said you're not doing any live stream shows, so are you doing anything else to promote the release of the album? Or
Yes, we're doing a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff.
Okay.
We're contacting various FM radio stations.
We're doing this interview.
That's true. That's
We're doing
fair
this
enough.
interview and other interviews like this. We are doing a lot of promotion that you just can't see.
Yeah.
Which is why, shockingly and beautifully, we are, within 1 week of release, we're at number 41 on the national metal chart. That's based on FM radio play.
Oh, wow.
That's because we are pushing and we're calling and we're doing everything we can to promote this album because we really believe in it. And that the metal scene has embraced us and the hard rock scene has embraced us.
That's because the industrial people hate us.
We didn't know
Industrial parentheses.
but we weren't sure, if we'd be welcome anywhere else. We thought maybe we were on a little island all alone.
Quotation.
But I have to say, hard rock and metal, both in the UK and in the US, has embraced us. We've been on countless podcasts and radio shows, and to see us on FM radio to the point where we rank number 41 nationally is unbelievable.
Now, I would ask, are there any, because the last that I had heard, I don't listen to very much radio these days, but there's not really much that I'm aware of in the way of rock radio in this area. Is there any stations that have picked you guys up around
this area? Probably the only one is Wendy at, I can't remember but yes, there is one rock radio. It's a very small station.
Okay.
No, in this area, there's not a lot of rock radio. But we are, there's stations in Buffalo that play us. There are stations in Chicago that play us. We're getting play in Texas. We actually get a report.
You made a song for them.
If they don't like it.
Yeah, if they don't like it, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
But the truth is, every week we get a listing of every radio station that plays every one of our songs, and every time they play it. And we are being played nationwide on FM radio.
All right. So other than the impending release of the Handsome Abominations album that we mentioned earlier, what's next for you and your bands? I know you said you're working on already the next Handsome Abominations, even though the first one
And the next Chmcl Str8jckt. We on the floor over there is a big sheet of paper.
At least 6.
Yeah, I think I stepped on it a couple times. I'm
You
sorry.
did, and that's fine. That's all right. That's how we work here. We just throw shit on the floor.
Footprint later.
But I think we have 5 or 6 songs in the works for Str8jckt, 5 or 6 songs in the works for Abominations. We're doing a cover of a Paul Mold punk song. Str8jckt is doing that. We're going to do a split EP where, I mean, it's hardcore punk guy, Paul Mold, I don't know if you know him. We're covering one of his songs in Str8jckt style, and he's going to cover one of our songs in punk style.
Oh, cool.
So that's going to be cool. It's going to be a split EP, a one-off, and... You know, I don't know if it'll happen, but earlier today, John had proposed that he and I do a few songs together. So that might happen. I don't know what it'll be called. I don't know any of the details, but you know, it's in its germination
Infancy.
phase. Yes. So there'll probably be a little project there. But yeah, all these things are going to keep moving forward and producing new stuff. Absolutely.
All right, fantastic. Well, that's all I've got for you today.
Fan-fucking testicle.
Want to thank you for having me over to your headquarters, and thank you for your time. All
Thanks,
right.
man.
Thank you.
Well, we cubed the cows, paid the growing bulls, stacked some brush, and now we're going to Goliad.
And from the album Dark Progression, that was Chmcl Str8jckt with Texas. I want to thank everybody for being on the show. Kevin, Ian, Craig, John, Misha, Sandy. It was so awesome to hang out with everybody. Like I said at the beginning of the show, it was so nice to be able to do this in person for the first time since 2019. To be able to see some people. I know that shit's still not going great in the world with the virus and whatnot, but it was just nice to see some people face to face. You can follow Chmcl Str8jckt and Handsome Abominations on social media. For Chmcl Str8jckt, you can find them on Facebook and Twitter at Chmcl Str8jckt with no vowels and an 8 in the middle of jacket, Str8jckt. And on Twitter at Chmcl_Str8jckt, again no vowels, 8 in the middle of Str8jckt. For Handsome Abominations, you can find them on Instagram at Handsome Abominations. And for whatever reason on Facebook, it doesn't look like they have like a... It's weird. It doesn't have like a... It's not just at Handsome Abominations. It looks like it's Handsome-Abominations-11019687348964. Not sure what that's about, but I would just search Handsome Abominations, and when you see the Facebook page that shows Kevin and Ian and Misha and Trace, you know that that's the right one. You can also follow J Bunny's Music Hub on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. As I said in a recent episode, I'm actively working on figuring out things for the Patreon, so keep an eye there. Patreon, I've never been clear on how to pronounce that, but in any event, that's there. I'm coming up with stuff for that. Also, if you believe in supporting music like I do by buying it, then make sure to follow Industry Embers at Industry Embers on Facebook and Twitter, and tweet or post your music purchases with the hashtag BuyMusic, B-U-Y, or it's BuyMusic, B-Y-E. In addition to buying music, if you're interested in the new Chmcl Str8jckt album, I was given some copies to give away, so we're going to do something with that. What I'd like is anybody that is interested. I've got 4 copies that I can give away of the new Chmcl Str8jckt album, Dark Progression, and I just want you to comment on this post on Facebook, because you could be listening to this podcast anywhere, but comment on the post for this episode on my Facebook page and say, what do I want you to say? Just say something about wanting this CD. But you have to follow my page, J Bunny's Music Hub, on Facebook, and it would probably be a good idea to be following Chmcl Str8jckt as well. So meet those criteria, and you can get yourself a copy of the CD. As for what's going on for the future of this show, you might have heard in the conversation in this episode some mentions of conversations with John Bechdel and with Craig Niebuhr, aka Trace. I've recorded episodes with them as well, so that's going to be the next couple weeks. Next week will be the episode with John Bechdel, where we dive deep into his career as a musician and a producer. You know, all of the bands that he's been in, and as I'm sure you heard just from the bits that he had on this episode, it's going to get real in depth, and it's going to be a good one. The episode the following week is going to be with Craig. We talk about how he and I became friends, discovering his band that he had at the time and his journey through music. And then actually I have another episode unrelated to these that's also already recorded, ready to be released, with Donald Carpenter from the formerly of Submersed and I Empire, currently singing for this new band called Blisskrieg, with former members of Tantric and Days of the New. So that one is going to be kind of got a good, starting to build a backlog of shit to come out soon, which is great. Not to have a backlog, but to have content on the way, to know that it's coming and be able to tell you guys about it, because it's already done. Instead of saying, well, I got some stuff that, I can't tell you about, but this stuff's done already. So next 3 weeks, new episodes of J Bunny's Music Hub. And more to come, because there's other emails out there, other stuff going on, another interview that is probably going to occur in mid-March, and other stuff pending email responses. So a lot going on. Loving it. So I'm going to leave you guys today with another song from Chmcl Str8jckt's album Dark Progression. Once again, thinking about it with the social media stuff, make sure you get no vowels in Chmcl Str8jckt. They don't like vowels. There's no vowels in the name of the album either. But from Dark Progression, or without vowels, Dirk Pergerson. I'm just having fun. This song is called Wrecking Machine. Until next time, guys.